Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another weather forecast here by Age Weather Forecast. This will be another severe weather update here for the potential for some severe weather across parts of the plains, including Texas, all the way up into the western United States, including Montana and Wyoming. We do have a very widespread possibility for some severe weather threats across much of the United States, but we do have a general area where we have a level 3 enhanced risk. That's where our main focus is, but generally, today we do have a very widespread threat, and that's what we're going to be focusing throughout all of the video. We're going to be looking at the timing of the storms, the location, the worst of the bands, and who can get hit the worst. And also, we're going to be talking about what these bands and severe weather can bring, whether it's tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Thank you guys all so much for all the subscribers we've been getting the past couple of days. Please share the video to any friends or family that you know that will possibly get hit by the severe weather and aren't aware of it. But without further ado, let's get in this video. As you can tell by the National Weather Service, we do have a very widespread threat for severe weather. Here you have the whole area of the eastern United States. We have flash flood watches and flood watches across parts of the southeast and including parts of the Ohio Valley. We are seeing very heavy rain across these areas here. And we also have flash flood watches and flood watches across parts of Michigan as well. So that's going to be including the Great Lakes, even also having some lakeshore flood advisories and flood advisories, even flood warnings. And also we have flash flood watches and flood watches across parts of the Northwest. So this is generally showing you how we have a very widespread for severe weather. So definitely something crazy here as we are seeing a very widespread threat, because you can definitely see we have multiple flash flood watches across many regions, including the Northwest, the Great Lakes. We even have flood warnings across the Ohio Valley and in the southeast. So we're going to be covering all these areas, but we are going to be seeing generally some really heavy rain across parts of the southeast as of right now. We even have flash flood warnings across parts near Anderson, South Carolina. Let's go and check out the radar here. Right here you can see the local radar of the southeast. We are seeing extremely heavy rain across the southeast. This is just a general area where we do have one of our areas of severe weather right here across parts of the southeast. Definitely be seeing some very strong bands across all the way from the Panhandle to parts near Charleston, South Carolina. So this is going to be one of the many regions we are going to be focusing on for severe weather in this video. Let's go ahead and talk about the storm SPC Day 1 categorical outlook. So as you see, our highest risk is actually not in South Central or the Southeast this time. It's actually for the Western United States and the North Central Plains. This is where we have some really strong potential for some severe weather for the Western Plains. That we have an enhanced risk for parts of far southeastern Montana, far western South Dakota, far northwestern Nebraska, and parts of generally much of eastern Wyoming. So we do have this enhanced risk for many border of the state. So it's not like a huge area of populated cities. Rapid City is really the only big city that I really know of that's really close to the enhanced risk. But we also do have a very widespread threat for slight risk as well. We have a very big threat for parts of the western plains in the northwest all the way to Montana to parts of the Colorado border with Wyoming there and Nebraska. And we also have a very big slight risk potentially for the Texas area. And look, we also have a very widespread threat for severe weather. Look at all of this. All of this is a big severe weather threat really for parts of the western plains and also including the southeast. So we do have a very widespread for severe weather. We have millions under this potential from a level 3 to a level 4. So we also have the big slight risk as well for parts of near Amarillo, Texas, Lubbock, much of western Texas, and that slight risk. And we also have the slight risk for not far from Billings, Montana, for Rapid City, parts of far western Nebraska, and those general areas. Let's go ahead and check out the cities that are actually in that enhanced risk, because really I don't know any big cities in those areas right there. Let's go ahead and check this out, see if we can get that enhanced risk right here, so we can get the severe weather to pop up. So this is really the general area. So we have Spearfish. Let me go ahead and check that weather story here. So the severe weather for today, we do have that enhanced risk. This is our first enhanced risk for parts of Wyoming, our first enhanced risk for Montana, and I believe our first enhanced risk for South Dakota of the year. So while this loads, we do have parts of near Sturgis, Spearfish, Sundance. Those are some general areas that are in an enhanced risk. We also have Buffalo. Sturgis is right on the border. We also have Gillette, Wyoming, but definitely a very widespread threat. I don't know why this thing's not loading right now. Let me go ahead and wait for this thing to actually load, and then we'll see that. So generally timing northeastern Wyoming and Black Hills early mid-afternoon, and then the western South Dakota plains mid-afternoon to the evening. So we are going to start seeing the severe weather starting to ramp up a little bit into the morning, and then it will start to intensify a lot more with the overday heating in the early afternoon, and then it will continue to strengthen by the evening. So we do have areas like Rapid City just outside, Hot Springs, we have Newcastle. These are all the areas out here where we have a pretty good chance for severe weather. So now as we look into the NAN 3KM model here, or actually no, the SPC still, tornado threat is actually very low for all of these areas, really. Necessarily, we have a very low threat overall for today for tornadoes, but we still have a possibility for tornadoes, because we still have a 2% chance here for the tornadoes across these general areas. So as you see, we have all of this right here. All of this is a 2% chance for tornadoes. This is literally all the way from Texas to the Canadian border with Montana. That's a huge, huge risk. And we also have, of course, the southeast. So this is generally a very large area for a 2% chance. We can have tornadoes really anywhere here. We can have tornadoes spawn up across these areas. So just because we don't have a very high risk for tornadoes today overall, we can definitely still have tornadoes, especially in these areas across this general region. So you can't rule out the possibility, because we've had multiple tornadoes and a 2% chance for multiple outbreaks this year, and we also have tornado warnings in areas that don't even have a percent for tornadoes. So you can't rule out the possibility just because you're not at a super high risk. A 2% chance is really the smallest threat necessarily out of the colors. So really, you can't rule out the possibility, but in general, it's not a huge risk. The hail threat, on the other hand, is actually quite a big risk. We actually have a 30% significant risk. So we do actually have a very big risk out here for part of the for the west, which is exactly why we actually have that enhanced risk. I do apologize. I'm actually trying to yawn, but not yawn. But this is exactly why we have that enhanced risk, because we do have that 30% chance for tornadoes and a significant risk. This is our first ever significant risk for hail in these general areas, and obviously for anything, whether it's tornadoes, wind, or hail. So we do have a very big risk for hail across areas of Wyoming, far western South Dakota, Nebraska, and much of southeastern Wyoming, or Montana, sorry. And then we have that yellow with a 15% chance, which is actually still a very good chance for hail. As you said, this is a very widespread area of 50% chance across the western plains in Texas, and then we have that very widespread 5% chance. Generally, we have a very widespread threat for hail across today. And as we now look into the wind threat, so the wind threat's also pretty high with the 30% chance, but we don't have a significant risk for this. I do apologize, my voice is a little weird right now because I just yawned. But we do have this really big threat necessarily for 30% chance for wind, so definitely have a pretty big wind threat. That's going to be those areas that are in the enhanced risk, and then we have that very widespread 15 to 5% chance for wind. So it could be quite a widespread area for generally wind, hail, and tornadoes throughout today. As we check out later this morning here, as we get more into the morning, we're going to start seeing the severe weather developing across the western plains, across all the way to Yellowstone, to parts of Wyoming. So really this won't start to ramp up until the mid-afternoon, and this is where we have that strong low pressure system. We will be seeing some warmer temperatures in these areas compared to this time of the year. We're going to be seeing some really strong, some smaller bands that could, I wouldn't say will be super cells, but they could be seeing some pretty strong cells in these systems across Montana. And this is the main system, as you guys can tell. This would be the best chance for some really widespread winds, hail, our 2% chance for tornadoes. That's going to be moving, of course, western South Dakota, northwestern Nebraska, much of eastern Wyoming, and then that's going to be kind of falling apart a little bit, but still going to be seeing that widespread threat as well for northeastern Montana as well. Now that we checked out the western United States, the northwest, and the western plains, let's go and check out the Texas area where we have a slight risk. So we have a very big band developing for this low pressure system. So that's exactly why we have the 2% chance going all the way over here, because we have two low pressure systems across all the way to Colorado and all the way up to Wyoming. So this is going to bring a very widespread area of severe weather to develop. Also, those overday heatings can create this bigger threat for pop-up bands to develop. We have the strong bands across parts of western Texas, affecting parts of Lubbock. And then these bands kind of get a bit bigger, but they also kind of fall apart. Here we have another low pressure system developing across the border with Mexico and Texas. That's going to intensify. That southern band right here as it does move closer and closer to central Texas. There, this won't be a huge supercell or squall line here. Just going to be quite a strong linear band there, and it kind of just falls apart before it arrives in parts of San Antonio. And it kind of just falls apart. As we now look at the Cape values here, these Cape values aren't impressive, but they are decent Cape values for parts of the western plains here, for parts of Wyoming and parts of Montana. So Montana has up to 1,700 joules per kilogram basically, which is actually a decent number. And across of Wyoming, Nebraska, and South Dakota, we do have around 1,600 joules per kilogram. And across western Texas, we have some higher 3,000s because that's where we have that overday heating coming in place. We have all the energy, but it seems like it will actually be very, very strong cap. So it most likely will possibly cap out. So that's exactly why it will fall apart later on, because it kind of caps out. We should see these numbers fall apart right later in the evening, only seeing some really triple digits, not really seeing past 1,000. But we do also see these numbers across Texas as they fall apart as well in the thousands. And it seems like everything will cap out. Look at that. For negative 4,000 for the cap. So this is exactly why it's not going to be such a huge threat. That's exactly why we will have an enhanced risk for this area. It's going to cap out from the start. So that's exactly why it's going to fall apart very fast and easily across South Central and Texas before it even does any damage there. And then we possibly have a severe weather threat for maybe tomorrow across these areas. So that'll also be something to watch out for. Now we look into the supercell composite parameter. Very small numbers, and like I said, not a huge threat for supercells in these areas in the western plains. Only at 1. Our highest is up to 7, which is still very low. And then these numbers kind of increase by later in the evening hours. We start to see some good numbers out here. Parts of Colorado, 17. That's a decent chance for supercells. Cap isn't really strong at negative 74, so that's actually not strong cap whatsoever. Pretty weak in the first, so that's where we're going to be seeing some strong bands that won't cap out in parts of eastern Colorado. And then we actually have a 22 for Texas. That's actually very strong. That's actually a very good number for supercells, and marginal tornado threat and cap is actually very weak. So it won't really cap out in the evening, but it will cap out across parts of the afternoon and from the start today. So I hope you guys enjoyed that part of the cap and all of that. And now we check the European model for Cape just to look at it a different view instead of the GFS. We do have a very good number actually across parts of southern Texas, up to around 5,000 joules per kilogram across these areas. We're going to be seeing some really decent numbers, some 2,000s all the way to some higher 3,000s. And then we're really going to start seeing these numbers kind of fall apart as we move on later into today and parts of tomorrow. You start to see these numbers going up to 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram, which is still pretty low amounts of energy for those areas. Let's go and check out the National Weather Service one more time, see if we have anything updated. We do have some more. We actually have some new flash flood warnings across the Texas border with Louisiana. We also have, of course, we still have these flood warnings across Michigan. We actually have flood evacuations here. We still have these flood warnings across Grand Rapids, Muskegon, South Haven. We've had a ton of rain, but it's kind of falling apart a little bit there. So just a ton of rain for Michigan in the Midwest or the Great Lakes in the past couple of days. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and bye guys.